Can you hear us now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
All right. I was saying no bad things about you. Don't worry. Hold on. Devin, and let's bring Glenn on board. Glenn, there you are. How you doing?
You told me he was the guy from Megadeth, man.
He is. He cut his hair short. He's got kids now. You know, things change.
I got to change all my questions now.
Well, just so you know, I'm wearing this shirt for the Victory and Glory game.
Oh, shit. Not okay. Too soon.
All right. Let's see this.
Nice meeting you, Glenn.
Hey, nice to meet you too. I feel like I've seen you before somewhere.
The post office, but he's cleared that up.
Maybe at a con.
You know, Glenn, your volume, I don't know if you guys hear that. It's way up.
Yeah.
Is it too loud?
It was.
Yeah, it is a little bit.
I'm also shouting because I don't know this mic very well.
Very
Okay.
good. It's good. Good.
I'll normalize.
Yeah. Oh, gee, what's up, man?
I am currently doing my usual assistant producer type stuff and making sure everything's running right on all the platforms that they're supposed to be running on. So yeah, I'm being a little bit quiet because I'm doing important behind the scenes stuff.
Oh, we see Johnny's online. Johnny, happy birthday, buddy.
Happy birthday, Johnny.
Happy birthday.
And there's Johnny holding up Steve Overton's game. And just a quick update as everyone does this checks. Steve's giving us another, I believe it's the final version of the manual after we've gone through a couple of edits. So you'll be seeing that soon. And we also have some of the counters for Steve's game that people have been asking about.
Oh, that's nice. I like that.
And here's some pictures of his maps. And we'll be addressing that a little bit more as we go in the near future. So I guess let's just all pick on Glenn. So Glenn, what have you been up to, buddy?
A few things. Just actually got over the virus, weirdly.
No way. You did say that.
Yeah, I think I got it in New York. I was there for Toy Fair at the end of February, and think I contracted it there. And not terrible. It was in my lungs and causing some difficulty breathing. But after 2 or 3 weeks of that, it finally let up. So I'm feeling perfect now, and now I'm immune theoretically. And why not? It's good.
Well, good for you, man.
Yeah.
But I don't want to sound morbid or something.
Too
like
late.
That. But how it didn't affect you more than that because what you keep in shape? What are you eating? Stuff like that. No, seriously.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, from what I've read, it affects people that are older with compromised immune systems, also people that are heavier because of their cardiovascular challenges. So
we're in trouble, Dan. We're fat.
Yeah, being in shape, I guess, helps you survive the worst aspects of it. I had difficulty breathing, and it never got to the point where I needed to go to the hospital. So maybe that had something to do with it. My wife had a lesser version, and my kids who were in their late teens, early 20s had gastrointestinal issues, and that was it. So it affects everybody a little differently.
Wow, because I mean, I'm sure you don't get much exercise being a corporate guy and a swinging at golf club. I mean,
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I took a break from work and actually got in shape. Now I'm sad shape.
It'll come back. It'll come back, man.
Yeah.
Hey, we did put up just on the bottom there, guys. We know this is affecting a lot of people with depression or with loneliness or anything else. So we put a little guide on there. It'll scroll throughout the show. It's just numbers if anyone needs any help. It's something I know Dan's big on supporting, and Devin and I. So it's there, and use it if you like.
Well, thank God for digital wargaming, right? It gives us something to do while we're stuck at home.
Listen, I've been enjoying the time off. I hate to say that, but I mean, I work from home anyway, so it didn't change a lot. Just that there's a lot more noise with the kids.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm just gonna.
Oh, by the way, Dave and Glenn, how do you guys know each other?
Well,
good
time at
question.
band camp. No. I I think the first time I met Glenn, it was in Vegas. At
Gamma.
one of the game shows, and
Yeah.
I was still running Matrix back then. That was it's got to be 15 years ago by now.
Yeah, so maybe it was when I had Eagle Games.
Yeah, you still had Eagle Games back then. Yeah.
Yeah.
So him and I we've always been talking on and off of it since then, basically working on things. And I've met Glenn a couple of times at Gen Con. And but you know what, Glenn? I know Dan's researched you, so be prepared.
Okay. Uh-oh. That's dangerous.
Is the OG going to be asking questions, or is he's just there for the prettiness?
You gotta have my face. The face has to be here. But yes, I will be asking questions.
Okay, good. Because I thought you were just behind the scenes, but present.
All right, so Dan, we'll let you take it away.
Okay. First of all, Glenn, really nice to meet you, man.
Thank you. You too.
Now I have a question. Like you're a game designer and you you have publishing companies on and off, different companies, right? But you're a marketing guy. Why do you want to be poor and go into games? And you know what I'm trying to say?
I know exactly what you're saying.
I bet you his wife has asked that a few times.
But it's like, why?
Yeah, honestly,
obviously it must be a labor of love because.
Yeah, for sure.
So what's the story?
Weird story is back in 1989, I wanted to get into the computer gaming industry as a game designer. And I went to Microprose and interviewed for a job there. And they offered me a job as a quality assurance guy because I was 25 or something, 26. And so I got a job offer to be in their QA department and work with Sid Meier. And dream job, right? And I flew home from Baltimore, super excited, back to Chicago, and told my new wife that, hey, I was going to get my dream career started, and we both could move to Baltimore so I could play games for a living and make $13,000 a year. And she vetoed the idea, actually. She said, no way are we doing that. I'm not giving up all my friends and family. And God bless her, I understand.
Not for 13 grand.
Not for 13 grand, but you know what? That's the entry-level job back in 1989, right? Yeah. And but it made me almost physically sick. I had to turn down the job because I didn't want to, try to just, risk destroying my marriage, dragging her out there. She had nobody, in her life. And, anyway, so I said, no, thank you. And it made me almost, suicidal. It was crazy.
Seriously.
I turned down that opportunity. The guy they ended up hiring is a guy, I don't know if you know, Bryan Reynolds. He developed Rise of Nations, and so he was like, and he did Civ 3, I think. So he took the career path that I would have had, obviously differences, but I turned it down, went back to selling steel. Every day I trudged into work, depressed and sick to my stomach. And thank God a few months later, they called me back and they said, hey, we really liked you. We see that you had sales experience. You're passionate about the industry. How would you like to work for us in the sales capacity? And you could stay in Chicago and be our Midwest sales guy. And I just over the moon. I was like, I absolutely would love to do that. And so periodically I'd fly out to their Hunt Valley, Baltimore offices and hang out with Sid Meier and Bruce Shelley and see what they were working on and do sales meetings. And so I got to be in the industry, but in the business side. And that's how I started my career in gaming. And so I was on the biz side at Microprose, Maxis, Activision. And then finally I just was bursting to design games. And I left Activision and started Eagle Games to publish my game designs.
Well,
so I've been on both sides.
You don't look like the stereotypic marketing guy, salesperson guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm a hybrid for sure.
You look like one of us.
I am one of you. I've been wargaming since probably 1970. So,
I mean, the marketing thing, and I've researched you a little bit, obviously. And I mean, you here it says you had accounts with these huge companies, man. Costco, Walmart, Target. I could go on and on, but you know what I'm saying? How did you get something like that?
How do I get something like
Yeah, like you're in board game designing. All of a sudden, you're a marketing genius for these huge companies, man.
Yeah, I mean, it was more sales, but yeah, it's also channel marketing with retail. And that was just how my career evolved, being a local sales guy in the Midwest to eventually North American sales director for PopCap, which was acquired by Electronic Arts. And so, yeah, I mean, you eventually, as your career moves forward, you're dealing with bigger and bigger players. And at Eagle, we actually got some of those games into Toys R Us, CompUSA. We never did get Walmart, but we did get Target. We had a game in Target, a couple games actually. I think we had Attack, and then ultimately Wits and Wagers right before I sold the company. So yeah, it's just the evolution of opportunity.
Now, is that difficult to get like your games in Target in a huge place like that?
Oh yeah, it's extremely difficult. And right now, with the new company, with Forbidden Games, that's our goal. Really, we design gateway games mostly with the intention of being in the mass market, and we still haven't got there. We're in Barnes and Noble. We're going to be in Calendar Club, Go the Game Store, and Books A Million this holiday, but we still haven't cracked Target and Walmart because it's that hard to do.
Really, like who do you call? Like what's the who do you get in touch with?
Well, basically the board game toy buyer. And even if you know who they are, they generally won't talk to most people because they're getting hounded, right? They're getting bombarded by hundreds and hundreds of these publishers, big and small. So generally the best way to go about it is to get a toy rep. There's a small community of professional reps that will represent a manufacturer's product line. But even they are extremely picky and will only pick up, certain lines of products. So if you've got the next, Settlers of Catan or whatever it is, the next Monopoly, you still might not get access if the rep doesn't like your product line. So they're the gatekeepers, really.
So it's basically one person's call.
Yeah, or a very small group of people, and they deal with these buyers every day. The buyers buy 20, 30 lines of products from them. And so there's a real tight partnership. So these guys are the gatekeepers. You have to use them almost exclusively if you're going to get into Walmart or Target. If you have a hit product, of course, the buyers will seek you out, but it's almost a chicken or the egg kind of thing. How can you have a hit product if you don't already have distribution in mass market retail? So it's always a challenge.
It's not based on their money, meaning like they have a lot of cash to lay down. What's stopping them from getting Eagle Games or Forbidden? I'm sorry, I forgot the other company. But what's stopping them from getting it other than? I don't know, man. Don't they want to make money? Don't they want to stock their shelves?
Yeah, really, it's real estate, right? So basically, they have a very limited amount of real estate, and they're trying to select. The buyers are trying to select the products that are going to get them the most bang for per inch. And so they don't care if they're selling diapers or they're selling, eggs or there's whatever they're selling, or any kind of a toy or game. Generally, the mass market buyers look for licensed products because those have mass appeal, and they look for products that are already proven hits because often these buyers don't know that much about the products. They're depending on their reps to be the experts to recommend things to them, and then they just need proven hits. So it's very, very challenging unless you already have a relationship and they trust you and they know you to bring them new products. For example, we put a product into Barnes & Noble, Raccoon Tycoon, last holiday, and it actually outsold 80% of their other SKUs. So now we have credibility. We can bring them more titles. The buyer now trusts us. She knows that our products will work in their platform. And now I get to have meetings. I met with them at Toy Fair. I meet with them at various shows. So now you have access. But I had to initially hire a sales rep firm to even meet the buyer for the first time.
Okay, so once you're in, I'm sorry, guys, I'm taking this. I'm freaked out. I'm so interested. So
Devin's telling me to cut your mic. I'm just saying.
I am not.
So Glenn, once you're in and you're good with Barnes and Nobles, can you slip in a title that is interesting to you but might not sell so much? You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I know what you're trying to say, and it's the worst thing you could do, right? If you once you fail the buyer, they lose trust. So not everyone's going to guarantee hits. There's no way to know that. But basically, how I've always approached it was, hey, I'm going to give you a line of products or things that I think are successful, and if something doesn't measure up, we'll pull it out and put in something that works. So we'll always be able to keep successful products on the shelf to own that shelf real estate. So you have to help the buyer. Essentially, you're helping them manage that section of shelf that you are on. But if you put something in there that's, hey, I think the public wants this, but you don't have total confidence that it's going to actually sell and work, you're gonna probably fail, and
it only takes one. You can have 10 big hits. You get one crap hit, and it erases all the good hits basically in their version.
Well, I mean, as long as you have something to put in to replace it and pull it off and take the return, because the retailers don't care if something doesn't work. That happens all the time, but they want you to immediately fix it. They want to send it back. That's
going to be a hit or close to a hit anyway.
Right.
You don't get a lot of
people to take a return, and that means basically eating all that money.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to shut up now.
Honestly, it's why I sell online. I do sell to distributors, but because we're making war games, the line is so limited.
Right. It's very niche audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's something I don't know of the industry, which is incredibly interesting, man.
Yeah, there's guys like us out there, but there's, compared to the mass market, it's a tiny percentage.
Really? Look,
do you have a friendly LGS that you go to, Dan? Local game store?
Well, not now, obviously, but yes and no, because I have to drive an hour away, because I used to live in Montreal, but I moved away because I hate people. And
great job you picked.
I'm joking. And the thing is, no, man, I moved into the country. It's quiet. As soon as I get into the car, hit traffic, I start getting anxiety. Because this guy's.
I can empathize with you on that.
Yeah.
But what I was gonna suggest is, if you do have an LGS, go in and talk to the owner and ask him. And it's kind of the similar situation. What titles does he choose that he's going to put in his store? And I've got a real good, tight relationship with the owner of my LGS.
Okay.
And he and I talk all the time. He knows I'm in the business and everything. And so he says that, from the hobbyist side of things, not from the war game side. We're going to say hobbyist. People may call it, Eurotrash, Ameritrash, whatever. I hate those names. I just call it hobbyist gaming. There are 1,000 titles a month that are being released for the hobbyist side of gaming. You've only got so much floor space, and it's even more important with the bigger box retailers like Walmart, like Target, what have you, that they're gonna want what they can cycle through and make a lot of money. It's not like the early 80s when we had, it was Avalon Hill, Simulations Canada, SPI. We only had a small one, and there were Avalon Hill game titles in Toys R Us. It's a whole different ball game nowadays, because you've got thousands upon thousands upon thousands of titles that retailers have to choose to stock, and it's basically, you're only as good as your last title. If you've got to make the money.
So that's interesting, Glenn. Based upon that, do you design a game with that in mind?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean,
really?
Yeah, the Civil War game is the second in a series of PC games that will also have board game versions. Those games are because I like doing them, not because I think that we'll get wide distribution. Forbidden Games makes games that are considered gateway games that have a broader hobbyist audience. So Raccoon Tycoon is a game that's roughly similar to Settlers of Catan or Monopoly. Huh?
I love that title. That is one of the best titles ever.
It's designed to have a broader audience, women and men, both younger and older. It's a game that anybody can play who's played Catan or Monopoly. Those are the games that we're publishing, but I always, because I love historical gaming and war gaming, I'm also going to always do one or two of those just because I enjoy them.
Okay. Hey,
Glenn, out of all the games that you've produced, do tell us the one you've enjoyed the most. Tell us the ones that's been the biggest horror for you.
Well, I like Age of Empires 3 the most. I think it's one of my better designs. It's got a video game license, or it originally did when I published it, and but yet it's just a really tight, great theme Euro mechanic design game. So it still holds up. It was one of the early worker placement games. It's still, anytime someone says, "Hey, do you want to play this?" I'll jump in and be happy to play it. Really proud of that one. Best-selling game is probably Sid Meier's Civilization, the board game, but it wasn't a very good game, to be honest. It was way too long, way too fiddly. It was not as elegant and tight as Age of Empires was, but it sold a lot of units. We sold almost 100,000 units of a big box, $80, $100 game in today's dollars.
That's huge.
Yeah. So for a hobbyist, big box game, but the market's bigger now. I mean, now you can, although, to Devin's point, it is much more segmented because there's way too much product out there. So it is harder in some ways to get to 100,000 units than it was back in 2005, but it's more possible because there's a lot more people gaming now. In the last 10, 15 years, I mean, because of Kickstarter, because of just the broadening of the consumer base with, I think female gaming, really, gamers added, basically doubled the size of our demographics. Back in the 90s and early 2000s, I'd go to Gen Con and it was 95% dudes.
Yeah.
And now it's almost 50-50. So wargaming maybe hasn't diversified it quite as much. Still pretty much an older white guy, market segment. If I go to Little Wars, I'll see one or two women gaming, and I'll see one or two people of color game like this. And that's not to say it's good or bad, but that's who generally is doing this. And I don't know why that is. Maybe it's because we all got hooked back in the 70s when this was a thing, and that's who was doing it.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you something about Sid Meier. Was he a nice guy, and was he a good businessman? He
is such a nice guy. Like, for someone who's got that kind of a large reputation, and he could easily be full of himself. He is the most genuinely humble, nice guy, one of the smartest guys I've ever met. Obviously, had so much insight into what made a good game. I still try to live by some of his, concepts. A couple of the things that he always said was, I want to make a game that makes you feel like the hero, right? The game's not playing itself. I'm not designing something to be a simulation or that the game system is the most important thing. He said he always wanted to create games that made you feel like you were the center of the story. And I think that's a brilliant way to start thinking about creating a gaming experience, is make someone feel like they're the hero of the story.
That's
and
cool.
The other thing that he said that I always remembered was that you always want to create a game that has lots of interesting decisions. And I think that's where game designers sometimes fall down, is they're creating a game that they're trying to model something, and they get down into especially war gamers, right? You get tabletop miniatures game designs, and they're trying to model bullets and movement rates and this, and they're forgetting that the main thing that's fun about gaming is that you get to get to a decision point that's going to matter, and it's going to make you feel like you impacted the outcome without having to play for 4 hours to get to that point.
Yeah.
Right? If you have lots of points that are decision points that are like, ooh, I get to make an interesting, a juicy decision here, and you get that over and over and over, you're going to have a good gaming experience.
What about, have you ever met Reiner Knizia?
I have, yeah. Actually, when I had Eagle Games, I met Reiner several times, but we sat down at Essen one year, and he was showing me a bunch of his designs to see if we would like to publish them. So he and I sat in his hotel, cafeteria, like at a very small German hotel, and we were the only two guys in there, and he just kept pulling things out of his bag, showing me his game designs. So that was my most memorable get together with Reiner.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Dan, we've got a request from the audience for you.
That's my son.
I figured so much.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You better be kidding, Julian.
Pack your bags, Julian. No. Someone asked me a question where I got the T-shirt from. I don't remember. I think the place I like to buy, I actually subscribe to the T-shirts. Every month or every 2 months, I get a free T-shirt. It's called Ranger Up. And they have a lot of cool T-shirts. I think I might have got this here. If I didn't get there, I got it at a game convention. That's, don't need to go to Walmart when you're at a game convention, right? All right. Unless, Debbie, if you got a question we would like to talk about your game, Glenn, your game that we're publishing. It's got, I think, 12 reviews. No one's got anything bad to say, which I always find to be a great gift.
That's unusual.
Yeah, especially for Steam. Yeah.
Right.
So, I like to start with, and let me just see where I have. I got images here. Box cover, man. Not the box, the artwork on it. Who's the artist? Excellent artwork.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's basically who I consider the best historical painter out there. Both for Civil War and Napoleonics. We use the same artist and it's basically already existing art. We just licensed it. So there's this giant catalog of art, and it's just really hundreds of pieces of original oil paintings. I own 2 originals from him, and it's the quality and the historical accuracy is unbeaten. I mean, Troiani does really good Civil War art as well. They're very comparable.
I did a video,
but
with
you just really can't do better.
I did a video on the gameplay here a couple days ago, and I said I really love this artwork because it looks a lot like Troiani's artwork. Okay, now I know why it looks like his artwork. It is his artwork.
No. It isn't. But the
it's not.
two artists are very, very similar in their accuracy and style. It's really very similar. But Troiani would be the other one. There's 2 Civil War artists that are absolutely off the charts. And my brain is just completely frozen. That's why I haven't mentioned the artist's name, because I actually know him well, and for whatever reason, my brain's not working right now.
I have that problem all the time.
Yeah, I have a gap with names, but wow, just crazy. Wow. Yeah, it'll pop into my head in a minute. I'll mention it. But yes, he's absolutely, for Civil War and Napoleonics, the best and most accurate. He owns a huge collection of authentic uniforms and weapons, and it's almost like a museum. And it's in the Shenandoah Valley, and he's devoted his life to historical art. So you really, you're not going to find a more accurate, and also the action sequences and the different uniforms. We brought into the game, in the units, we wanted every state to have its own unique uniform to give it that sense of diversity of uniforms in the Civil War. Even in the Union side, there's always these tiny differences with, the hat or the kepi or the, which coat they're wearing or which, style. We've got Devin mentioned in his video, the Zouaves are the model for the New York
Zouaves,
infantry. So yeah, there's this great diversity of look and feel on the battlefield, and even though the Louisiana uniform is also like a Zouave uniform. The Louisiana Tigers, I think, is a famous regiment that uniform is modeled on.
Yeah, here's a nice shot at the map there. So Dan, tell us a little bit of what you're trying to focus on the most behind the game design.
Yeah, so the idea behind this series of games, the Victory and Glories, was to create very playable grand strategic level games. As a war gamer, I love games that can take 20, 30, 40 hours to play or longer. But sometimes I'm in the mood for something more beer and pretzels, and I want, to play a game that I can knock out in a few hours and feel like, I actually did something. So the idea was to create kind of an abstracted, grand strategic level game that had all the right components in the gameplay. It had supply, it had blockade, it had strategic movement, it had tactical battles. Because sometimes in strategic level games, you don't always get to influence the outcome of the battles as much as I would like. So I wanted these, even though they're abstracted and you've got this left flank, right flank, center kind of a methodology, the outcome of the battle is up to the player. And again, going back to Sid Meier's, concepts, is the players get to make the decisions on the battlefield, but it's fast. You get to knock out a whole tactical battle in a few minutes. So it can work that you're going to fight 10, 12, 15 of these battles throughout the Civil War, and still finish the game in 3 hours, 2 hours, or so.
Got another picture here for you. Hold on.
So I guess I can keep talking about the grand strategy element of the game if you want.
Yeah, keep going. I'm sorry. It's a little delayed sometimes, the responses here.
So the game also contains lots of elements that existed. Like I said, I wanted it to feel like you were actually, refighting the war. So even though this is a very beer and pretzels approach, the key things that mattered in the outcome of the war still matter here. You've got railroads that give you strategic movement, but they also influence supply. If the Union tries to invade the Confederacy and they, get away from the rail lines and they don't protect those lines all the way back to their homeland, then the giant army runs out of supply. And that happened to Grant in the Vicksburg campaign. He moved south, and the Confederates slashed at his supply lines, and he was forced to essentially give up and march back north to Memphis and start over. So really, you need to maintain your supply lines. You can have all the aspects of the blockade. So strategically, it mattered a great deal with the North's Anaconda plan that they were trying to essentially strangle the South's economy. If you, as the Northern player, if you allow the South to build lots of blockade runners, they'll run those back and forth between Europe and their ports, and they'll have a very robust economy. If you can strangle that and build up your blockading fleets, and actually capture those blockade runners as they're trying to get in and out of ports, you'll starve them as you're capturing their cities and as you're, strangling their ports, either, taking them through amphibious landings or blockading them. Eventually the South will crumble. That's your strategy to win the war. It's very difficult to win all your battles when the South has big armies, right? And if you're just moving in Virginia and in the West and not threatening their coastline, they can concentrate their forces against you, right? So they've got a bigger economy and they've got forces kind of massed. Whereas historically, the North threatened their entire coastline and forced them to disperse their forces to cover those things and to stop the North from moving inland. So the South lost the Civil War, in my view, because they weren't able to concentrate, and their economy they were eventually eroded. And the North had a very successful strategy historically of, blockading and taking those ports. They took New Orleans, they eventually took Mobile, Norfolk. So they reduced the amount of coastline they had to blockade. And if you do that in this game successfully, you will also have those same rewards. The South's economy will eventually be degraded. They won't be able to put as many troops in the field. If they don't block you from taking those towns amphibiously, you'll take their cities, and you'll also be able to march inland from those cities, and it'll be a disaster. They'll be, instead of 2 fronts, they'll have 8 fronts, and they'll lose. So it's a real balancing act as both players, because if you're devoting resources as the North's Navy, you're not spending on your armies, right? Mm-hmm. So your invasion progress will seem slower. But if you don't do that, you could lose key battles because, as Devin mentioned in his video, the South starts with very high leadership ratings. And in the tactical battles, those things matter a great deal. He lost his battle in Northern Virginia.
I lost my battle gloriously in North
because
Virginia.
the South had better corps commanders and a better army commander. And that matters a great deal in the outcome of those tactical battles. So the North, in a way, can use Grant, right? He's their hero to win some battles in the West or bring them east and maybe win in Virginia. It's very difficult. But to win some battles and drive into the South, take Louisville, take Nashville, and then start to expand and go out into maybe Memphis or head toward Atlanta, and you can have your different Western strategy. I tend to not try to be too aggressive in the East because it's pretty difficult. The South's AI will defend Richmond with the biggest armies, but you can use that against them, right? You can threaten the coastlines. You can start driving into the South and the West while he holds Richmond. Let him have it. But you're slowly eroding his ability to win the war. And you're winning battles. The other thing that matters is European intervention. If you win battles, the European intervention rating will not go up and will actually drop. But if the South wins battles, it'll go up and up and up, and they'll start giving more and more economic aid to the South. And ultimately, they could even declare war on the North. And if that happens, a British army appears in Toronto, and the Union fleets start getting degraded. Every turn, they lose a ship. So eventually the blockade falls apart and this extra army in the North happens. And now the North is confronted with a multi-front war. So if you get to that point, the North has a very difficult time winning the war. So European intervention matters a great deal.
Now, Glenn, I know you got a degree in history, okay?
I'm sorry, can you speak up?
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, you got a degree in history, is that right?
It's true. Yeah, I got a degree in history and poli-sci from Marquette.
Okay, and what I wanted to realistically, do you think the South really had a chance of winning the Civil War?
Yeah, it's a great question. I do, because the North was presented with the monumental task of occupying a giant piece of territory, right? The only way they could win the war and force the South to surrender was to defeat their armies and to occupy most of their territory. Right, even as late as 1864, when a good portion of the South was occupied, they still hadn't surrendered.
Really?
And if a couple key things didn't go their way, the election of 1864 could have gone to McClellan, who might have ended the war. Because again, one of the things in the game represents this. It's the war weariness essentially, and the more casualties that you take, your war weariness drops, and if it gets to zero, you'll stop fighting. Right. And there's also a card in the game that represents the 1864 election that if you don't have a certain rating, at that point, you could lose the war. So I think the South could have won simply by standing pat, right? Defending their territory and winning key battles. They didn't do that because, and in fact, it might be controversial, Lee was an overly aggressive commander. The two campaigns he lost was when he came out of Virginia and went and fought at Antietam and went and fought at Gettysburg when he, couldn't have won Antietam, and probably, it would have been difficult to win Gettysburg. But he was trying for a knockout blow because they were being strangled, right? They were at Gettysburg. They were about to lose Vicksburg. The Anaconda plan was working, so he was almost forced to do it. But if they were able to concentrate their forces, prevent the North from invading in the West, and hang on along the coasts better, I think they could have won the war just by outlasting the North's willingness to continue losing that many men. So controversial. You may not agree.
No, I'm curious. I don't know very much about the Civil War, being Canadian, but if McClellan would have won the election.
Yeah.
Now, I have a sub question. How was the spread between McClellan and Lincoln? Like how many votes did McClellan get as compared to Lincoln? Was it a blowout by Lincoln?
Well, You basically, he depended on the soldiers voting for him to win that election, right? So they essentially had today's equivalent of mail-in ballots, so that the soldiers, or some were even furloughed to go home and vote. And he was able to win that election because of that swing vote. There were a lot of people in the North that by 1864 were very, very weary of the war. They'd lost sons and uncles and fathers, and what were they fighting for? They were fighting for this concept of a united country. At that point, a lot of them were like, screw it. Those people don't want to be part of our country. We can't force them to. The slavery issue was an issue only for a small percentage of Northerners.
And later in the war also.
Have an opinion about that, really. They didn't care. And so really, if you've lost more men than we lost in all other wars combined, really, I think we're at that stage still. It was, and as a percentage of the population, it was a huge number of people to lose, both through disease and through battle losses. People were very tired of the war, and the South could have won just by not losing.
That's awesome. Awesome.
All right, I got some images here of the battle system. Can you give us a little information on that?
So yeah, the tactical battle system is, again, very abstracted, but we wanted to represent all the things that mattered in a Civil War battle. So the style is inspired from a game, I don't know if you guys know it, an Avalon Hill game called Napoleon from way back. It's the block game, and I think Columbia continued to publish it after Avalon Hill. Brilliant game. Basically, you've got this concept of left flank, right flank, and center. And one side can win the battle by eliminating all enemy units in that quadrant, or in that section of the battle. So basically, like a lot of Civil War battles, you will pick a flank that you want to get an advantage on. So here is an example on the right flank for the South. Jackson has a 10 rating. He's the corps commander there. And if he advances there, he's going to be facing Howard. And that's an exact matchup that we saw in Chancellorsville, and we know how that turned out for the North. That flank got crushed. So you're going to want to basically get an advantage somewhere on the battle, and then push your troops forward into the center so you can start attacking. Artillery can do a long-range 2-sector barrage, but it's less effective. So you can basically do that to keep the enemy, keep hitting the enemy until you're ready to push your troops forward. And so you would push your troops into the middle and then take advantage of key terrain features. You can see in the middle there where you've got forest and you've got hills. And then on the left flank middle, you can see a town. So those will give different bonuses to the troops that occupy them. Hills give bonuses to artillery. Woods give bonuses to infantry. Towns give bonuses to both. And then farm fields give bonuses to cavalry. And that is kind of a throwback to the Napoleonic system where, like in the Battle of Quatre Bras, French cavalry would just appear out of nowhere because of high crops. You couldn't necessarily see them coming as much. They'd be in kind of a swale, and the crops would hide them, and they would, come streaking out of there. Civil War cavalry wasn't used as much in tactical battles. I mean, Gettysburg, they were a holding force for a bit, but they generally weren't used, and they usually didn't charge very much. But we still include them and give them a small bonus for attacking unsupported artillery because of their speed. So it wasn't really used that much on Civil War battlefields, but we wanted to allow the player to have some use for them on the tactical battlefield. But mostly you're going to be pounding with your artillery to disrupt the enemy, right? Mostly. And you can attack with artillery without risk to yourself. If you charge with your infantry, as Devin noticed in his game, the attacker can be disrupted because it was very difficult for Civil War infantry to charge. They would often take massive casualties if they were in the open for any given time as they were closing to range. And so we modeled that. As you're moving your troops up, the enemy defenders are hitting you, they're firing at you, and even when you charge, you can be disrupted. You can't be eliminated, but you can be disrupted. The units that you want to focus on when you're launching your attacks are the units that have already attacked, so they're vulnerable to counterattack, and that have been disrupted. So Devin tended to, I was noticing that he was targeting always the strongest units, and he wasn't having a lot of success. The the best tactics in the game model, again, hopefully it's all abstract, but it's modeling how it should work, right? You have to have infantry supporting your artillery. If your artillery is sitting by itself somewhere and doesn't have an adjacent infantry unit, it's much more vulnerable to attack. If you're charging into artillery that is supported, you run the risk of being disrupted at a much higher rate. You want to basically, attack and beat the enemy down with artillery, charge their vulnerable units, and then it matters. Things like quality of the experience of the unit matters. They gain experience, depending at the end of every battle. Some units will gain points. Terrain matters. Weapon systems matter. A lot of the units in the beginning of the war start with smooth bore muskets, and they move to rifled muskets. And then very few units can be awarded repeating rifles. It was very few units in the Civil War actually had them until very close to the end. But if you have those, they automatically disrupt the unit they are firing at and have a higher attack value. So those are really valuable units. You don't want to lose those, right? So it's always, do I hold those back and put them in at the key moment, or do I put them out front to help beat the enemy down and maybe take some losses? You're making those decisions through the battle of where you're going to attack, and strategically where you're assigning your commanders. It matters a great deal. So and where you decide to fight, my strategy in the game is usually to hold on the defensive in the east, because I can defend Washington. The cities tend to have more terrain features of fortifications. I didn't mention those earlier. Those are really good defensive bonuses. And as throughout the war, cities will gain fortifications. You can see it every turn where some cities that have built new fortifications, and you could have even up to like 6 or 8 fortifications in a town. Good luck attacking that, right? So but you can beat down those fortifications either by siege. If a city is surrounded by enemy troops, every turn they can lose fortification levels. Or if they're a river city, the Union has river gunboats, and you can assign them to attack a city and beat down some of those fortifications. And that's all historical. And then also fleets. If you're attacking, that's where the Union ironclads really benefit a navy. They have a higher chance of defeating or eliminating fortifications. And so you're bombarding these towns to beat down their fortifications and sieging them, and then you can launch your attack. So everything in there, you can't actually do an amphibious landing directly into a city that has even one fortification. It would just be a slaughter. So you have to have your navies beat down those fortifications before you can land there amphibiously. So that's another part of the use of those navies that you're building up as the North, is to kind of, focus on a town, beat down its fortifications over time, and then amphibiously land. But then the South has the ability to know where you're hitting. So then they can move troops there, right? So, but they have to make that difficult choice. If they create an army to defend New Orleans, that army is not available to defend Nashville. So all these systems kind of work together. And again, it's very abstracted, but it has all the elements that made Civil War tactics and strategy feel like it did, and reward you for doing the right things.
Is there any chance that this game will be available for Mac OS?
David and the program are actually discussing it right now. It's
because the game is going to cost me $1,000 if not.
You can get parallels. There's also Virtual Box, I think it's called. And there's another thing you can run on a Mac that plays Windows stuff fine. I mean, I have Windows. My Windows works better on my Mac than it does on my PC.
Really? Yeah. I'm just having issues with my Mac. I don't know if it's going to run it.
All right. I got some other screenshots here, Glenn. A customer did ask something. Hold on. A guest here. See where his question is. There you go. Do you see that, Glenn?
Yeah. Yes. The Robber Baron expansion is for a game we have at Forbidden called Railroad Rivals, which is a tile drafting and laying game with pick up and deliver railroad theme. So yes, it's in manufacturing right now. I actually just got a sample from the factory yesterday, which I approved. They were having some difficult. Well, first of all, they had the coronavirus challenge.
Yeah.
So the factories in China were closed for 2 months or more. Then they are getting back to work, and we're having some challenges. So it's could be an issue on the back end of supplying the games once they're done. But now they're back on track, and they're making that expansion. Should be done in about 30 to 45 days. They're finishing up. What the difficulty was is we have a wood version with wood tiles that are really beautiful. And the quality of the printing was not very good. It was blurry. It didn't look good. The quality was unacceptable. So we had to go through several cycles of approval, even once they were back to work. But now they're back on track. I approved everything, and the game should be finished and produced and done in about 30 to 45 days.
All right. You might just, I'm going to throw some screens up here. If you want to give us a little idea of what's going on.
Yeah. So one system I didn't mention in the game, which adds a lot of flavor and, again, those interesting decisions, it brings in politics, it brings in events, it brings in some benefits and bonuses for military and production. This particular card, so that you have these action cards, that you get a certain number of them to start each game. So that means every time you play the game, you're going to have a different kind of set of random events and bonuses that you'll start with. So the game has a different flavor every time you're playing it. Some of the cards are events. So like in this case, it's the Trent Affair. So a famous event that had happened during the Civil War where the Union Navy seized a British ship, and on board were 2 Confederate diplomats that were heading to Britain to basically plead the cause of the Confederacy. They were seized and put in chains and made prisoner, and Britain was not happy about that. It did the sovereignty of their ships, which is ironic because it was the issue that they were violating our ships in the War of 1812, which caused us to go to war with them. Could have caused them to go to war with the Union if we hadn't basically just given up those men and sent them back to Britain and released them. Lincoln was smart. There was a great feeling in the North of screw those guys. We're not giving up anything, and if they don't like it, they can suck it. But it would have been a bad mistake, because if public opinion in England rose to a fever pitch and demanded war, Britain might have done it. And had they declared war early in the Civil War, we would not have been able to have a successful blockade. We would have possibly faced British troops in Canada. Would have been a whole different ballgame. So Lincoln was smart and basically, ate crow and gave up those Southern diplomats and released them. And it avoided war. But in this case, this particular card still shoves the European involvement rating up 10 points. So it's like a 100-point scale. So if the higher you go on the scale, you go from sympathy with some small economic benefit to the South to I forget what the term is, but they're basically very sympathetic and they're giving more economic aid, and then ultimately war. And getting to a war with Britain is very difficult in our game. You have to really be bungling the war badly, and the South has to invest some of these decision cards to push that rating up. But there's always a cost. Like, for example, historically the South decided to cut off some supplies of cotton to Britain to make them squirm, to make them feel the pain, so that they would, come in on the side of the South and recognize the South as a nation. And it was a mistake, because it cost them a lot of money early in the war when they needed it to buy arms and buy supplies, while the blockade was not yet fully in place. And by the time they realized that it wasn't having the effect they wanted with Britain, they tried to ship those supplies and they didn't get through. A lot of them didn't get through. So that you can take that decision, but it will cost the Confederates money. So some of these decision cards have a benefit, but also a cost.
All right, here's another one for you. This is more, I guess, more of the game and play, though.
I'm sorry?
This is, I put a new picture up there.
I see it's an old version of the game. It's still got Napoleonic units on the bottom there.
No, it doesn't.
That was one of our early playtest versions, so nothing to be ashamed of. It was all part of the process.
Here's a new screen with the right stuff.
There you go. So yeah, in this case, you've got this. We didn't mention this. So one way that we needed to handle the idea of the campaign or the region of Northern Virginia and Baltimore and Gettysburg, a lot of action happened in this very small geographic area. And we wanted the players to be able to maneuver in that area and to feel like they were doing the things that the Army of Northern Virginia and the Army of the Potomac, how they were maneuvering in the Shenandoah Valley and how they were moving back and forth. And we couldn't do it very well from the strategic level. So we created kind of a sub map of that one region. So anytime you have armies to move there, you just basically hit, I think it's the control key, and that sub window pops up and you can move your armies in that window.
Okay. Here's another one for you.
So there you go. Yeah, we have 4 different ways to play the game. 2 of them are, with the North, and 2 are with the South. So you can play either side. And one is the historical kind of setup where, the armies and everything and the political system is what it was historically. And then the other is alternate history, which I've always found very interesting, which is that the border states, Kentucky was a slave state, Maryland was a slave state, Missouri was a slave state. Those historically didn't join the Confederacy. Troops joined the Confederacy from those states, but generally the Union occupied most or all of those states pretty early in the war and politically prevented them from joining the South. And it was a big deal. If Kentucky and Missouri and Maryland had joined the South, that would have been a much different balance of power. Those populations in those states were larger. I mean, especially Kentucky and Maryland. It would have been a different deal. Lots of horse flesh and industry existed in Kentucky and Baltimore. And the capital of the country was in Baltimore, in Maryland. So we allow the player to play that what if scenario. If those border states had joined the Confederacy, those slave states had joined the Confederacy, it's a much more difficult task for the North. So if you become a very good player at this game and you're winning even playing it at the higher difficulty levels, which are challenging, you can play the higher difficulty levels in the border state scenario and you'll have a run for your money. It's going to be very difficult to win.
Here's another one for you.
Here's another one again with some old art. The appeal, that's an Austrian, early Napoleonic era.
We're going to have to complain.
No, it's okay. Put it back up. It's fine.
I said we're going to have to complain to James
about that. Development. That's how it works. So this card is an appeal to the governor of Tennessee. Basically, some of the cards allow you to replicate the idea that the states had a lot of power during this era, and they could refuse, especially in the Confederacy, often did refuse to send troops out of state. They wanted to often defend their own state. And some of the cards represent that. Some of the cards let you recruit bonus armies from particular states, and this would model the idea that political pressure. So Lincoln might contact a governor who really didn't like him very much and say, hey, send us coronavirus supplies. Oh, wait, no. Send us troops. And the governor could say no, or he would do it, depending on political favors and those kinds of things. Another card similar to this in the game is where the Union player can play this card and it affects the South, where a state recalls some of its troops. Historically, this happened where Georgia especially was a very states' rights driven state, and they were having challenges later in the war where they were getting invaded, and their troops were fighting in Northern Virginia and fighting in other theaters, and the governor didn't like it. He's like, no, we need to defend our farms and our people, and we're taking those troops back. So you can play that card, and two forces, 2 units will disappear from the game, essentially, because they went home. But some extra fortifications will pop up in one of the cities. So we're trying to model these, political, economic, other factors that happen in the war, and also just give it a lot of flavor so that the game feels very much like the Civil War, and it plays differently every time you play it. You're not just doing the same exact scenario and the same outcome every time. You've got different benefits and costs every time you're playing the game.
All right, I'm going to try to pop something up on the screen. I'm not promising it's going to work. Okay, apparently my promise is good because it's not working. Hold on. All right. Just so you guys see, I asked a couple of questions. Has there been any updates? There's been 2 updates. The game's been out, 2 weeks now, Glenn?
No, I don't think even 2. I think just like a week.
Okay, so James, excellent programmer. He's already made 2 updates. I know he's working on another one now. And I also know we've updated the manual. Now, it says link removed because Steam, every time I put a link up, removes it. They do it on default. Now, if you're a regular character on the site, you don't care. But if you're the developer, it removes the links. But near the bottom is another link someone else put up, and I was able to cut and paste it. So there you go. And he's done some significant improvements in the battle part of the game, I've noticed.
Yeah, one of the things that James is really, really good at is, and his name is James Warshawski. He's a brilliant AI programmer, and he's also a historical gamer. So he gets, when I do a game design, I just basically give him a Word document, and I say, here's how I want things to work. And then he starts building the system, and he's really brilliant, and he understands wargaming and historical gaming at a very visceral level, which is really important, I think, when you're working in a partnership like that. Because I've worked in the video game industry, but I've never, before working with James, I've never designed a PC game. So I have no programming skills other than basic from 1990 and, that kind of thing. He's really, really good, especially at AI. And I think one of the things as gamers, I love to play games on the PC because you've got the built-in opponent and you've got all these great, it tracks everything. But the challenge is often AI can be really weak, and it's just kind of dull to beat up on the computer AI, and it kind of ruins the game experience. But games that James programs do a great job of having an AI that plays intelligently, and he and I worked together to fine-tune it. So, for example, one thing I noticed was that the Confederate was very passive. The Confederate AI, it didn't want to fight battles unless it had a big advantage, and it would let me drive into the South and not try to cut my supply lines, not send raids around behind me. And we addressed that. So now if you don't cover your flanks, if you don't watch out, the AI will do some nasty stuff to you, and you could find yourself with an army isolated deep in Mississippi like Grant did.
All right. Well, Glenn, we've had you on for now. I know you said you had about 30, 40 minutes, so we appreciate the extra time. Is there
my pleasure.
You want to talk to us about, or anything that we left out maybe?
No, I don't think so. We covered everything. Thank you so much for having me on. And I hope this gives everyone a sense of what's kind of fun and realistic for an abstracted beer and pretzels game in this game. Because I think it's a lot of fun. I've play tested it a lot over the last 6 months, 12 months. It's come a long way, and it really is fun. It gives you a real feel for the right strategies and the outcomes of a civil war, even if it's not, as much one-to-one. It's the game experience, and the overall experience does a good job of forcing you to address the same issues that a Jefferson Davis or a Lee or a Grant faced. So I think that's all you can try for in a game like this.
Hey, Devin, I know you got to play the game on Twitch. You got any comments for him? Anything? I know we've had.
I definitely have noticed that the AI has gotten a lot better, because when I streamed the other day, before, my normal tactic was just to sit back and try to do like Napoleon, a feu de fait, which is just using my artillery to hammer them down. And the Confederates would oblige me because they would never advance. And then when I played on 2 days ago, then all of a sudden I've got all the Confederate line in my face. I was like, I don't know how to deal with this before. So it was quite a pleasant surprise, I'll tell you that. Yeah.
And again, James is a gamer, a historical gamer, and I am, and we definitely understand what weak AI looks like, and we worked hard to make sure that you weren't faced with a pushover in this game.
All right, gentlemen. If anyone's got any questions, now's the time to post them on our site so we can ask them. Someone wanted to know, are you going to convert these upgrades into the Napoleon version?
Yeah, actually, this is the next thing James is working on. We have a few upgrades to the game that have been suggested, and we didn't, because we were working on this, we didn't have time to address those. And now we're going to do it. It's not going to be a major update, but there will be some improvements to the naval game and a few other aspects of the game coming in probably the next 2 months or so.
All right, great. Just so you know, guys, you can get the game on Steam. It's only for Windows at the moment. The program and I are considering Mac. We just haven't had a chance to really talk about it. And is there anything else I'm missing, guys? All right, then, Glenn, we're going to let you go, buddy, and I'm sure I'll talk to you later on in the week.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Oops, sorry about that. All right, so let's see what else other news we have for you guys real quick. That's the picture last time I saw Glenn at I think we're in Vegas. We might be. I think we're in Vegas in that one. And he had just gotten the board games for Victory and Glory Napoleon. By the way, gorgeous looking game. Gorgeous looking game. Okay, let me update you guys on a few things. I'll take World at War stuff, 1985. We've come out with this flow chart. Okay, get rid of that banner. Okay, and this is just a simple flow chart, guys, to help you do the turns a bit better. I don't know if it was Keith or somebody else who came up with the idea that we're going to add the rules onto each part of the flow chart. Well, that makes sense, I guess. So this way, if you don't understand something, you want to look it up in the rule book, it should have either a rule section or a set of rule sections that you can go look in the rule book towards and get an idea what we're talking about. So that's that one. And the other thing we updated, once I find that one, guys, is we put out our optional thermal rules. Again, these are free downloads, guys. You can get them on Matrix. Oh, sorry, you can get them on Lock and Load. You can get them on Facebook. And this is the thermal imaging. It's an optional rule, okay? But you got it there. It's a one-sided card. There's also a low ink edition. And again, check it out. Let us know how you feel about it. And that's basically takes up that. And let's see. Mo has put out a video last night. I'm looking for his little piece here. Here it is. He played through, I think, one side as the Americans, I believe, on Nations at War. I know it said the 7th. We needed a little bit more time, the program and I, and there's no way to adjust the date, or I think there is a way, but it's not working. And the team at Steam is happily working on that with us. There's also another gentleman who'll be having some stuff come out soon about the game. And so we'll be getting ready to ramp that up too. And I know some guys have asked us, why are the games coming out now? Why are they so cheap? Well, first of all, the Lock and Load Tactical Digital, it's got to be 6 years we've been doing that, Tom and I. And we did stop and pause in the middle because we didn't like the engine. Okay, and we went and moved over to Unity. Now, it was more me dragging Tom initially. But honestly, Tom said once he got it down and he was playing with it, it really helped, and it made the Mac version easy and everything else. Victory and Glory, that again is mostly Glenn and James, and we just kept banging out until we got it to where we wanted it to be. Nations at War, another great developer as far as I'm concerned. And again, we want it to be like the board game. So I've heard some comments, oh, it plays like a board game, because it is a board game. Okay. And we want it to be that if you guys are playing the board game, you can look at this, and outside of the UI, you should be able to play this right out of the box. Okay. So remember that it was the goal we were going for. Okay. We do support Vassal. I mean, some of you guys who are commenting, and I don't know, watching the video, obviously not, but there's no manual. we have more manual documentation, I think, of any other company that I'm aware of. I could be wrong there, but there's ebooks, there's PDFs, there's audiobooks. There is, we're getting ready to release a version of the manual on Alexa. Okay. So there's more ways to get this book. You can get a hardcover book if you want to buy one. But all the other manuals we mentioned are free. You just got to download them. Okay. They're in the game on Steam, on the Steam page. They're inside the game, and they're on our site. So, there is documentation. The biggest complaint we got so far is the multiplayer, which we've made, I think, 6 updates. I'm going to go check now before I open my mouth and get it wrong.
Yeah, Tom's been averaging at least 1 update a day, sometimes 2 updates a day.
So we've really been going through all the issues, the features, etc. I'm trying to see where the updates are. Here we go. Okay, I can't put them all on there simply because it's just too big. But if you go into Steam, and everyone had to go on Steam at one point to get this. And once you're on the product page on the top right, there is a button that says community. Click in that, go to discussions. There's 3 things pinned to the top. One's for your features, anything you think you want us to add. Doesn't mean we will, it just means that we'll find it easier. One is things that you think are broken. Sometimes it's broken. Sometimes you guys just don't read the rules. Okay. And then the other thing is basically an update report. This is also located on our forums on Lock and Load. So it shows every day since we've released it, a log. Oldest is at the bottom, newest is on the top, what we've changed, and any developer notes or designer notes that he wants you to know. Okay. But I mean, a nice report is we're getting a lot of people very happy that the multiplayer seems to be working out for just about everybody. Okay. Now, the only big change we made in the rules was the line of sight. Okay. We went in the board game, it's point to point. In the computer game, it's hex to hex. So if you have a tree in a hex, and that hex is all tree and it blocks. Now, this was something that we talked about during development to discuss if we can do it better the other way. I won't mention any other one's products, but there's some that do point to point, and the processing of the game is super slow. Okay, so that's why we went with the hex. But through talking with other programmers and just discussing other methods, we are trying something else out. I'm not saying it's coming out tomorrow or even next week, but it's something to give you direct point to point, because the goal is to make the game as close as we can to the board game. Okay. Dev, I know you've played it at least once.
Oh, yeah. I've got a little bit of time in it. Yeah.
So how have you found the overall experience?
I found it great. I mean, when it comes to, I'm not, let me get my thought process back together. I'm enjoying the hell out of it. For me, it's a great port. It really is. You can just sit down. I can point and click. I don't have to think too hard. I don't have to try to remember all the rules. I just push a button. I push another button. I see pretty tracer fire and I hear machine gun sounds, and I move my guys across the map. At the end of the day, a lot of times that's all I want. I love Lock and Load Tactical. I love playing at Tabletop Vassal, but sometimes I just don't want to think too hard. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but this is great for doing that. And Stefan is doing a fantabulous, is that even a real word? Yes, it's a real word. Job of making sure that all the rules are getting ported over into the digital version properly. And I can't speak any more highly of the job that he's been doing with Tom, because I know he's been just inundating and burying Tom with, this doesn't work quite like this, and this and these, and that's excellent. We need Stefan doing that. For those of us who just want to point and click, I mean, as long as you learn the interface and learn how the things work, and remember that you don't want to put your Jeeps in an area where they can't drive over the bocage and can't do anything with them, and that you have to break weapons down in the rally phase, you remember things like that. you're going to enjoy the hell out of the game. It really is really cool. I've kind of been holding off a little bit on the multiplayer because right now the multiplayer is the starter kit scenarios, and I've played the starter kit scenarios until my eyes bleed. And it's like, no, I want to do multiplayer with something other than those 4 scenarios. But again, that's something Tom is working on. It's one of his top priorities aside from the major bug fixes.
The logic that Tom and I had for that, and more Tom than me, honestly, is that we wanted to get those 4 scenarios. All those things are like, there's some things like moving the side maps there, whatever you want, the menus.
Yep.
It was pretty fine for Tom and I. We understood what we were doing, but we saw the users were having problems and it wasn't as intuitive as we were. And that we knew was going to happen. That's one of the major reasons we did the early access.
Yes.
You're seeing changes like that, pretty much because early access. I mean, that's really what it's there for. And I think I missed someone's question. Oh, okay. Jason. Yeah, you may get some freezes here and there, Jason, but again, hit the F3. I believe that sends the a bug report in. You can also post it, and it gives Tom all the files he needs to see why and how. And again, if you guys are playing it, look up almost every day there's been an update. I think Sunday's the only day he didn't do an update, and one day he did 2 updates. So he's pumping this stuff as fast as he can to you. And like I said, the nice feedback is yesterday's update really seemed to fix a lot of the problems with the multiplayer functioning. So we want you to play multiplayer. That's the whole reason we made it. There's also what was the thing? As far as the scenarios go.
Yeah, Tom's asking a question about that, so you may want to tie that in.
Hold on, I didn't see that one. Hold on. Any more thought on the detailed mission briefings? What? It's not enough? No. Yeah, and this is the problem of us programming. We do know the missions. What we're looking is to add the forces in. Okay, we're looking to add the victory conditions. I think they're already there, actually, but if they're not, they're going to be there. The events are not going to be added. We're going to tell you, we may tell you that there's an event marker somewhere, but the beauty of not having the events, because technically the original game, I think the events were upside down. So you had to flip the book around to read them. Also, some of the events we gave options to, meaning that it used to be you always get a panzer on this hex. Now we may have given you different 2 or 3 different units that gets put in, or different tank units, and we may have randomized exactly where they come in on, just so it doesn't become a memorized thing. Okay, so you're going to see more of it, guys. Just keep bringing it in. It's not even been a week yet. No, tomorrow's a week.
Hasn't even been a week yet. Yeah.
So you've got 7 updates over 6 days, and so we are actively banging on this every day. So your reports and your playing is important. Once we get the multiplayer a lot more locked down, okay, and any bugs that are really breaking the game or causing you guys too much grief, that's what we're going to fix first. Then we're going to multiplayer the other set of scenarios. And what we're going to do is Tom is looking at doing, I think, the Normandy first and then the Vietnam ones because of the style. But as we finish the scenario, we are going to probably release it with an update. Okay, so again, we'll help you a lot there. Okay, Jason. Oh, guys, I want to bring something up, and this is probably more because it annoyed me. Okay, I'm going to use the word Yahoo, said that we were ripping you guys off by charging you $3 for the game. Okay. And he said it's because of the way the battle packs are. So let me just explain this and make sure everything is okay there. The game we have set for $5 because it's an early access. It will probably be $9, maybe let's say 10, between $10 and $15 upon release with all the features and everything else. Okay, and each battle pack will probably be about $10. Maybe it'll become $12 or $14. But so if you take this to say $10 as a base. Okay, and there's going to be 5 battle packs for Normandy. They're going to be between 8 and 12 scenarios per battle pack. Okay, so the amount of battle packs is based on the amount of scenarios in the base. So when you add it up, we felt this was such a great way because for $3 right now, $5 normal, you can test this game out. If you don't like the game on Steam and you don't play more than 2 hours and it's under 30 days, you can just get a full refund of your $3 or $5, what it may be. So we thought this was a great way to see if it worked in your notebook. I know some of you guys know, but some of you don't know. I founded and ran Matrix for over a decade. Okay, and the biggest complaint to us was not having demos. And demos is just programmers hate demos because it's just extra coding to basically break the game. Tell it not to do this, tell it not to do that, don't do this that long. And I always got major pushback. We felt this was a great way because it got everyone who was title money or didn't know if they were going to like it, a chance to play the game. Helps us. We get feedback from guys who are actually playing the game, new people and people who know the system. So the battle packs we felt was great because we wanted to, if you want to play a Normandy, play Nam, and then let's say the next one is Heroes Against the Red Star, well, why should we make you pay, let's just say 3 battle packs for that, $30. Pay for 10 if you like it, buy the next one. Or maybe if you play that one too much, you want to go back to Nanam or over to, Day of Heroes, whatever we come out with. So we're going to bounce around just for that reason to really give you the flavor of the game. So that's the reason behind the pricing structure. It gives you a chance to do the game, try it out, see what you like, don't like. Now, we are going to do, I've been talking to Nate, Gimpy Gamer, about doing more videos. We're going to hold off on the more videos until the interface is more secure. Okay, we do like the interface as we have it. We do think it's intuitive. The feedback definitely says the minority doesn't like it, or we want some minor tweaks. That's fine, but we're not going to rip it out and start from scratch. I've saw some people say, "Oh, the whole UI has to be ripped out." I found that UI is like colors. Some like red, some like blue. Neither one is necessarily wrong. It's just what what you like. So, give it a break. But the reason we put it at 40% off, guys, with this wonderful virus, I think there's now 16.9 million Americans. I don't know the stats for around the world that have been unemployed over the last month. Okay. And we think this is a great way for all the support you guys have given us for so long with our board games that, I can't see people buying a $30, $40 game, maybe even a $50 game at this point. So we thought, hey, it's early access, and it's something that hopefully, $3 to $12 if you bought the 2 battle packs was something you could spare and give yourself some enjoyment when you're locked in your home. So, hey, Dan, I think that's your...
That's my daughter. It's a family affair.
They want to make sure you're really working and just bumming around. I don't think they really believe you, man.
Oh, man. But gentlemen, I have to go. I want to play a lock and load tactical digital game because you're talking about it so much. And David, please do a Mac version of Glenn's game, please.
I'm not promising. I'm going to talk to the programmer first. And listen, I want to do everything in Mac and Windows. My personal opinion is Mac war games are much higher. People will tell you Mac only is 10% of the gaming industry. You're right. It's 10% when you're playing first-person shooters and maybe adventure games or pick something else you want. But as far as war games go, it's a much higher percentage. And you know what? There's not a lot of us around. That's one of the reasons Tom and I made sure that this game had cross-platform multiplayer ability. Okay, so Dan, you can take this and play anybody that has the game. It doesn't have to be another Mac guy. And the whole thing is about playing games, guys. Okay, so...
Well, thanks, David. OG, you take care.
Good job, my friend.
And I'll see you guys around.
All right, buddy. Ciao. Okay. Well, at least
and then there were 2.
But the best looking ones. Come on.
That's right. That's right.
Oh. Okay. So let's see. Okay, Tom. Yes, some of the UI boxes are not resizable. Terrain info. It was before Tom added the little plus and minus buttons. Okay, so you're telling me, Tom, that after he added the buttons, the terrain info is not resizable. If I'm getting that right? Yeah, we'll wait to see if Tom answers.
Wait for him to respond. Yeah, it takes about 30 seconds of turnaround.
And then, yeah, I think it's a great pricing structure. Like I said, that was the big thing I always annoyed me when we did War in the Pacific. I played that game, and I remember I wasn't going to read the rule book, and I took my whole U.S. carrier task force, and I ran out of gas in the middle of the South Pacific because I didn't bring an oiler with me to refuel the fleet. You know, again, these things require reading. We probably will be doing a rule book on the interface. When I say rule book, a manual on the UI, but the base structure of the rules, 99% of them, if not all of them, will be on the game manual. Okay. So because honestly, I wouldn't know how to write it any better, than what was already done. So just realize that is going to be, but we will probably make a UI. Oh, we're going to make videos. We're not sure. I think the videos are easier, but we'll see. Tom says I'm correct. Okay, so I will. When I get off this podcast, I'm going to be talking to Tom anyway, so I will let him know that. I don't know. My guess is if there's a plus and minus signs there, it's supposed to change. Now, what Tom's trying to do is he may have got all the other screens, all the other menus done and didn't finish that one, but we want to get a patch out. Okay, because it's a lot easier for you guys to check it out, see what's going on. All right. Do I have any other updates here for you? Oh, let me just go over this. Nations at War, guys. I can't change the date on the Steam thing. It's not my fault. I've tried. Steam's looking into it. I'm going to say somewhere this month it should go out, but I want to wait until the programmer gets back to me. We wanted to modify some of the scenarios to make sure they match in the game rules, so you got the same thing. And he's got that list, and once he tells me nay or yay, we'll go from there. Sorry, Tom. Devin, you got anything for us?
I don't think so. I think everything on my side is all good to go with everything from the digital. Go out, buy them, play them.
Okay, what else we got? Oh, we do have something else. Hold on. Okay, no, that's not it. Comments. Here we go. We got one more from Jason in Point Blank. I do know that there was another round of improving the rulebook. I do know Sean's working on it. I do know all the artwork is done, if I'm not mistaken. And I do believe Sean is will be sending out pretty shortly, a new round of playtest kits, just to give it the final push on it. Someone's asking about when we're going to put the Kickstarter for Charlotte's Strength. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I put it on hold. Not that it's not done. I put it on hold until we see how the world resets itself. I think I said this last week, but I'll repeat it. I find, with so many people being out of work, okay, or laid off, not 100% sure yet when we're going to be able to go back to work, or they end up getting laid off. I think it's pretty, not fair as a company to our supporters to say, yeah, buy this $80, $100 game now or more, okay, and they're having a problem putting food on the table, so they can't buy it, okay. So I'm going to wait and probably until the end of the month to see if we're really getting better or if it's really getting worse, or it's no change before we make a decision up. But the second it looks like it's going to clear up and people kind of get an idea when they're going to go back to work, then we'll work on that. Okay. Okay. I visited playing on my anniversary on the 13th. But if you're playing Nations at War on your anniversary, you're going to get in trouble. And you're probably going to get me in trouble too, Jim. All right. And then, Tom, I did post about it on April 7th update thread in the Lock and Load forum. That thread mysteriously disappeared. All right. First of all the bugs should be put in the bug list, not on the update. I told Tom, since we have all the bug reports, and this is what we're trying to avoid, on the top pinned up, please put it there, Tom. I'm trying to remove the comments from there and put them on the bug list because it gives Tom literally 3 places he has to look instead of 3 sections or 3 areas plus all the reports. And there's no way you're going to miss it or you're going to turn around and get someone else posting the wrong thing. So if it got deleted, I apologize. But again, we really want you to post it in the bug report. And you can put as much stuff in there you want, details. And remember, the beauty about the system is you get to use the F3. Yeah, it's on the LNL. It's on the Lock and Load publishing forums under the game, of course, and you'll see it. It's pinned right to the top of that section for Lock and Load Tactical. And we have the same thing, too, guys, for Victory and Glory in the American Civil War. And we already have one up, although you can't post anything yet because you don't have the game yet. It's Nations at War. They're also on Steam. Okay, so you have both places to put. The best place to put it, I'm not going to lie, is on Lock and Load because Tom's there more than anywhere else. But my job, unfortunately, is to move these stuff around and compile him a list every day of what we're finding. But yeah, it's go right ahead and post it. Do you see it, Tom? You happen to be able to look? Hey, Jason, no problem. Thank you very much. Okay, guys, you got anything else for us? Oh, I do have something. Devin is having a contest.
All right, forgot about my contest.
Now,
Yes, we are giving away the Steam key for Lock and Load Tactical Digital plus the 2 DLCs that we have available right now. It's a real easy contest. Just go over to my YouTube channel, The Original Grognard. The video's in there, or if Facebook is your thing, go to The Original Grognard on Facebook and just watch the video. It's like a 3-minute video, 3.5-minute video. It's not going to take a lot of time out of your day, and you'll learn how to enter the contest. It's a really easy contest. I was going to try to make it cool and maybe some hip and, be with it, and I just couldn't come up with anything. So we're going the easy route. So I want to make it as easy as possible for people to enter and possibly win this competition.
I need easy, buddy.
I know, me too. I'm the exact same way. So I'm gonna be deciding the winner on Monday the 13th. So you've still got a few days to get over there and go check it out, and you may win yourself a free Lock and Load Tactical Digital free video game.
All right, guys. I just also want to point out, same old day, we have a Discord server. You'll very rarely see me on there. Extremely annoying service to use. But Devin, for reasons I cannot tell you guys, he likes being on there. He does monitor it with Stefan and a few other guys. Got a question, looking for a game to play, Lock and Load Tactical or anything like that. Just hop on there. There's the short URL for it. If you guys are having any type, we are still open. The warehouse is still shipping. I know it's going at a slower rate, not because of us, but because of just in general, the postal service and that. But if for some reason you're having a problem, open a support ticket. We've got them nice and manageable now. Darren, who we definitely have to get on one of these shows, which we'll all enjoy in general, is doing a phenomenal job with the tech support and the people over at Premiere. I can't thank them enough. If you're looking for our products on Steam, we have Command Ops and 2. There's War of Empires, Fallen Stars War of Empires, science fiction game. Let me see, that's the right one? Okay, good. All right, and I don't know if there's anything else. Anyone else, guys? Now's the time. Oh, there's a question. I missed it. See, Alan, this is what happens when you're late, dude. We went over all this already, man. Yeah, I did ask Glenn that question because I saw it posted on a few forums. He said they will be doing work over the next month or two. I don't know what exact work is, but I do know him and James are working on it. And I hope that answers your question.
It's basically going to be updating Victory and Glory Napoleon to include a lot of the features that have been released with Victory and Glory American Civil War. And I believe Glenn was also mentioning they were going to rework a little bit of the naval combat.
Yeah,
as well
I think
for
the naval
Napoleon.
combat, a lot of people
Yeah.
that they would like to see something different.
Yep.
I think someone had said it. Getting invading London was the best thing to do. I have the game too, and I enjoy it, but I never win, so I can't speak on that level. So listen, guys, we're thinking maybe once we get what we feel is a very solid build of the multiplayer, is getting in a place where we can all get together and jump in and play games. It will be initially the first 4 games scenarios on the starter kit. I know you guys are probably getting bored of those already, and I appreciate that. But really, it's just because there's so many things to affect the multiplayer: events, helicopters, the different things you can do that we're trying to get based on this 4 scenario pack. Giving a perfect example, if we can get that line of sight done, you definitely gonna want us to do it first, or you may never see it throughout all the DLC. So, that's the logic behind everything there.
And again, it's an early access game, people. And we're not a AAA studio. Tom is one guy, but that's it. That's all we've got. He's a phenomenal programmer, but he's still just one guy. So please take that into consideration before you yell at us. That's all I can say.
Any update in your modules for Lock-on Tactical, Devin?
Yes, it's the exact same issue we've been having for the last 6 months. There is forward progress on it. All I can say is that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. We might see the release of it, Kickstarter of it, later this year and more towards the end of the year. And I have been working more with the second module, the Pegasus Bridge module. The playtest map for it is done. I just did get it to Mark, but I don't know if I want to swamp him with that, because it's a 28 by 32 historical map, and we're adding some new terrain types that we haven't seen before in Lock and Load Tactical, and we're reworking how some of the existing terrain types work, how roads work, because in Lock and Load Tactical, the roads are all nice and neat and even and go right through the center of the hex. Well, in a historical map, especially with the European communities where you have very narrow roads and buildings on both sides, we're trying to work getting the roads with buildings in the same hex, and we don't really see that too much in the regular Lock and Load Tactical. So we've we're kind of working on modifying. We don't want to lay a whole bunch of new terrain rules on you. There's I think 3 new terrain types and a couple modifications to how some of the terrain types are working. So that we've got that. But yes, there is forward progress being made. Nothing that I can speak to of right now, because David, you and I know why. But yes, it is moving forward.
All right. Well, I'm not going to say next show, but I'm going to say soon we should have some samples on the map.
Yes.
I know people, so.
Yeah, you know the people.
Yes. All right, gentlemen. Well, it's that time where you guys need to start waving, which is just you and me, guys. So, hey, thank you for tuning in, guys. We really do enjoy you showing up. We are doing these podcasts a little bit more frequently, thanks to the fact that
we're stuck at home.
Okay, so there you go.
Well, that is all you have for this episode. Keep gaming, and may God bless you and keep you until next time. On the air is a Lock and Load Publishing production.
Now see if David remembers where the red button is.
I got it.
Excellent.
No, I don't.